SatCom is a part and parcel of the communication, and when you have to achieve the universal connectivity, the SatCom becomes an essential element. And more so, this particular panel on SatCom-Policy and the ecosystem enablement. Now, this is a very important topic in the current scenario or current changed landscape in the country. We have seen in the inaugural session that how the space sector reforms have changed the landscape in last 5 years in the country, and the SatCom is an essential part of the space sector. So, and when we talk about the policy plays again a role in enablement of any sector. And when we are talking about SatCom sector, let me recap some of the policy initiatives by the government in last 5 years. We have seen that moment the space sector reforms were announced by the government, it was followed immediately by the constitution of the INSpace about 3.5 to 4 years ago. And then the Department of Telecommunication brought on the space sector reforms, the SatCom reforms 2022 very famously, which created not only the ease of doing business, but also reduced some of the charges to make the services, communication services in affordable manner. Then the Indian Space Policy 2023 made the entire change, wherein the space sector was open to the private sector, followed by the easing out of the FDI reforms, the FDI sector. And then we have seen the Telecommunication Act, which brought the clarity on the space spectrum assignment. And then now we are working on the Space Act. So these are the very broad level policy initiative by the government which are towards the enablement of the space sector, and this is also equally applicable to the SatCom. When it comes to the regulatory level and particularly talking about the SatCom enablement, it started with the announcement of the vision document of the INSpace, wherein we have set the very ambitious target of taking Indian space economy from $8.4 billion to $44 billion. And in that, as morning chairman INSpace also mentioned, the SatCom has a very significant contribution of about $15 billion. It's about 30%. In 2023, it was about 50%, about $4.2 billion. So when it came to the regulatory reforms, the INSpace took certain initiative along with the other government department, Department of Telecommunication, MIB, WPC, and the other government department. We brought out norms, guidelines, and procedures for the implementation of Indian space policy in consultation with the industry as well as with other government department, and this brought a clarity to the industry for the undertaking the space activities, and more so for the SatCom. The very important change which these NGP brought is in the authorization of the provisioning of the SatCom capacity. And there we have removed the requirement of the individual SatCom users to seek the authorization every time they have to use the capacity or they have to use the SatCom services from Department of Space or from the INSpace. Now, the user need not approach the or need not approach any space or Department of Space for any authorization. It is one-time authorization which is given to a satellite operator, and the SATCOM capacity can be sold, resold, leased, subleased to any third party user. And in one stroke, this has really provided the ease of doing business, given the flexibility to the service providers to engage and enter into the lease agreement with the satellite operator at their own flexibility, at their own terms and conditions. Also, we have seen previously that in a year, 300 to 350 applications by the broadcasting sector channel operator used to come to Department of Space for its clearance. Now, those requirement also has been removed, and this has really made a significant change in processing the authorizations and the licenses by the ministries very fast. So, so these are some of the things which we have brought in. Now, another important thing what we did exercise is to assess the SATCOM demand projection for the next 5 years. And this was done again in consultation with the industry along with other government department, again like DOT, DOS, MIB, and it thrown very interesting results wherein the broadcasting sector, the demand is more or less stagnant, say around 25 to 30 transponder in C and KU band including DTH. The telecom sector has shown the very exponential growth projection in terms of 2.5 to 3 terabytes, and especially if the consumer broadband takes off, then there is an immense opportunity for growing the SATCOM sector in India. Now, this exercise has helped us not only to devise our strategy for the providing and processing the authorization application for provisioning the capacity, but also has also brought out certain gap areas wherein the government may have to step in. For example, we know that our dependency on the non-Indian satellite is much more. We have almost 65 to 70% of the services, SATCOM services in the country, including those TV channels or the VSATs are on the non-Indian satellite. At the same time, now when we have to achieve the target of $44 billion and from the SATCOM $15 billion, there is certainly a requirement that the Indian industry participates and in true spirit it becomes co-traveler. So, there has to be now a sort of policy incentive wherein we have the potential Indian satellite operator come up in the country, and we create more and more infrastructure, communication satellite and the respective ground terminals and the ground system infrastructure in the country. So, again towards that, as chairman mentioned, there is one joint working group at senior level is being constituted again by INSpace, which has the participation from the ministries like MIB, DOS, DOT, WPC, which would also ensure to see that how the steps, what all the steps would be required to realize those demands which have been now projected or assessed with the consultation of industry, and how we enable the ecosystem, especially the SATCOM ecosystem in the country with the more participation of the Indian industry. So, with all these initiatives, industry has to play a major role. INSpace also has been consulting industry at every milestone or wherever any major policy has been brought in, be it Indian space policy, be it in the FDI sector, be it the NGP, or even to the extent of the this JWG, where we are trying to we are consulting the industry. So, this particular forum is now another opportunity for us, wherein we have the industry forums, industry associations representing the industry here, and who would be now debating on the policy aspects and also what all the government and industry could do to further enabling the SatCom sector. So I think it would be very interesting to see, and I request all the panelists to be brief in your interaction so that we can have more and more questions. So now I wear my hat of moderator, and then I will first introduce the distinguished panelists. So on my left side, I have Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt. He is representing Indian Space Association, ISPA. ISPA is an apex non-profit industry body set up exclusively for the successful collaborative development of the private space industry in India. ISPA undertakes policy advocacy, engage and operate with all stakeholders, and acts as a catalyst for accelerating the exchange of knowledge, information and technology of space-related domains amongst all stakeholders of the entire Indian space ecosystem, including the government and its agencies, to make India self-reliant, technologically advanced and a leading player in the global space arena. Let us welcome Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt. He is the Director General of ISPA. Then we have the Mr. Anil Prakash. He is the DG of SIA India, the SatCom Industry Association of India. As a dynamic, not-for-profit space sector association, SIA India is dedicated to advancing sectoral interest, accelerating industry growth, and catalyzing innovation through strategic engagements with key governmental and global stakeholders, policymakers, regulatory bodies, and standardization entities, aiming to create a vibrant and innovative ecosystem. Welcome, Mr. Anil Prakash. Then we have Mr. Debashish Bhattacharya. He is Senior DDG, Broadcast India Forum, BIF. The Broadband India Forum functions as a neutral, non-partisan policy forum and think tank that works for the development and enhancement of the entire broadband ecosystem in a holistic, technology-neutral, and service-neutral manner. BIF's endeavor is to promote, support, and enhance all policy, regulatory, and standards initiatives for the proliferation of high-quality broadband in the country, to empower consumers with efficient and economical broadband to realize the true digital India. BIF works closely with the government and the regulators in this mission. Let us welcome Mr. Debashish Bhattacharya. And then we have Mr. Rajat Nigam. He is representing Indian Broadcasting and Digital Foundation, IDBF, and he is also CTO to GeoStar India. IDBF, a non-for-profit organization. IDBF's members comprise both news and non-news channels, that is general entertainment channels, sports, music, movies, infotainment, etc. Over the past 2 decades, IBDF has played a key role in providing research-based policy and regulatory advocacy to the government to build a strong broadcasting sector, which is the backbone of the Indian media and entertainment sector. Welcome, Mr. Nigam. So now, after having introduced, now as we know, the panel is diversified. We have representation from both broadcast as well as telecom sector, and the associations are truly representing the SatCom industry, and who have been interacting with the government as well as the industry at true bridging the gap between the two. So now my first question, I is with you, General A.K. Bhatt. Now, this is regarding the SatCom demand assessment exercise, which InSpace has undertaken along with the other government departments. And of course, it was with one-to-one interaction with industry stakeholders. This was done about a year ago. Now, what is in your view, whether these demand projections are realistic, still realistic, they are relevant? And if so, what else we need to do to realize this demand? Whether what steps government should take, what steps industry should take, so that we have the sufficient demand generation and which can help in growing the SatCom sector.
Thank you for this question. And in fact, this is most important for all industry, startup or whatever. Where is the demand? How do we generate the demand? So I should compliment InSpace, and you have led that initiative of working out what is the requirement of spectrum for the next 5 to 10 years, especially giving very clearly what are the future trend lines. And I remember when that exercise was done with all stakeholders, with variable data inputs, you were able to synchronize it and bring it to some shape. My compliments to you for that. Now, I would say the demand is really realistic. It does cater for the security aspects. It caters for the demand which is going to build up in the government sector as well as in all other private sectors. But what is most important is we've gone through an excellent historic movement in policies and regulations. You have listed them out from the day one. Now, being specific to SatCom, we have, and greatly so, Department of Telecommunication and Department of Space, both have ensured that one, space is allocated not by auction but by administrative means, which has been a huge, great story, harmonized with the global system. And then beyond was allocation of spectrum. But sadly, GMPC's first license was given 1.5 years back. But we have to still see spectrum being allocated. We understand it is happening in India for the first time. But the delay is a little too much. It is resulting in an opportunity cost for the players and maybe future players who are going to come. So we very, very strongly recommend that allocation of spectrum should happen at the earliest.
So yeah, so we do understand now. So we take note of this, that one important thing is that the faster processing of the authorization and services becomes one. Now, one continued question too on this. Now, do you think that there has to be some balance in the demand and supply in the country? Now, you know that the supply, the adequate capacity to be made available in the country is very important, because it not only drives down the cost, it brings down the cost. It also, in fact, accelerates the demand generation. It creates the new use cases and innovation. It also creates the room for the innovation. But at the same time, now we also have to see whether any prospective Indian satellite operator, whether there is sufficient room, sufficient scope, sufficient appetite for them. If there is excess capacity in the country, now will it protect their interest? So what is your views on that? Do we need to have a balance?
So that's a very big question you asked as a regulator and as an authorizer. How do you ensure Atmanirbharta and the Indian interest is protected? Now, we should learn from what has happened in Department of Telecommunication. They have gone from a phase of 25 years back where everything was government and public sector to today where it is totally free enterprise, and it has really grown. It has made India digital. Now again in space, we have to ensure that demand supply interferences from governments is not too much. You have to put the regulatory guardrails, but it should be soft touch. It should not be restrictive, because a very important part for industry, for the commercial people, is costs. And if amongst 3 cost people who are providing it, theoretically if MEASAT provides it better than ISRO, you should not stop the company from going to MEASAT. It is what is important is ISRO or a private player in India should face the challenge of global costs.
Okay. So basically, yes. So what you say, there could be some balance may be required, but at the same time, it has to be soft touch. We should have the adequate supply in the country. Thank you very much for that response. Now I move to Anil Prakashji. So I am now taking the leave again from the same, that taking the prospective Indian satellite operator. Now we have the, you know that, as I mentioned, that more than 60% SatCom services are on non-Indian satellites. And now because the space sector reforms have opened up for the private entities now can build a satellite, they can operate the communication satellite now. So what we should do now to incentivize the prospective private Indian satellite operators. And of course, government has taken certain initiative, and especially recognizing the spectrum availability is one of the major hurdles in the communication satellite. And recently, as you may be aware, that we have made accessible one Indian ITU filing to one of the private operators. And now that may result in one of the first Ka-band high throughput satellites by an Indian private operator in India. But what else should be done? Whether the such type of satellite, communication satellite, what are the requirement? Government should do, what industry should do?
Thank you, Jain sir. First of all, let me congratulate for the organizer for organizing such a wonderful session, and it's my privilege to be here. Sir, as we see that ISRO has done a bedrock situation for the Indian space industry to grow, and we are very proud that our Indian space industry has grown along with ISRO over the 30 years time frame. So it means they have built up capability with them to especially design and develop geo satellites. Now the number of space reforms has already been just on your opening remark you already said, but the number of factors which I wanted to bring into which will accelerate the growth. And there is a private sector, and there are more than 350 space startups that's already coming in and working. So with the combination of the expertise which we have, that which is 50 odd space industry, which have been working with ISRO, then 350 startups and about close to about 300 plus MSME. So that makes a very robust space industry. One thing which we come into the thing, because 90% of our space components has been imported. So it will be take time, hell of a time to grow our indigenous components. So we, when it's come to, there is a import restriction is there, especially from the US side, from ITAR or thing. So that import is because they consider this for whatever is there in the space for that is for the dual use. So that is a major block which we have been, I think, working on tremendously on this to see like that. Second thing is that the GST, which is also some of the components which has been sent to for designing a payload for India, and then we wanted to send back. So there has to be some kind of GST, balancing has to be done. Similarly, there is export restrictions. For example, we develop a design system and we want to export to Australia or we want to export to third country. Then there is a problem. Of course, yes, last week I was in Sydney. We had a India-Australia roundtable discussion where Chairman Pawan Goenka was chairing the session. We touch upon this aspect. So these are the things which require to, not only with Australia, but a number of other countries where we do import and export. So that's also need to be stabilized. Of course, government is providing, and I'm thankful to InSpace for his very proactive intervention with not only the policy reform, which they are themselves were doing, but also working proactively with the other government agency for ease of doing business. We are really thankful for you that. So I think this is the era where the collaboration is taking place both within the country and as well outside country. So that is taking place. And because our homegrown demand is not that extensive, so we're largely dependent on demand from the outside country, especially I'm talking about the satellite manufacturing. So, but there are a number of constellations which is being, been awarded by, same with the EO's constellation by InSpace, as well as NSIL also has awarded a contract. And similarly, that other technology has been given also mission to launch the satellites. So homegrown, that system design and development is now taking into new, you can say, the phase where the earlier demand was ISRO-led, but now is a demand with the space economy which brings the demands. So I'm very hopeful with this going forward, and the things will be coming on the way, but there's going to be streamlined. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Anil Prakash ji. Now, when you talk about the demand, so that makes me one more question to Debashish ji. Debashish ji, if we have to really generate the demand, as we discussed that the SatCom demand, the projection whatever was made, one of the major hurdles which we see generally is the cost. And always, as far as user is concerned, it compares the cost with the terrestrial. So, what is a sort of ballpark cost which generally a user is looking at in India for the satellite-based services, which will drive him to adopt the SatCom, is number one. Of course, it cannot be comparable to terrestrial, and because the SatCom has to reach somewhere in inaccessible area where the terrestrial is not there. But what is the affordable cost? Can we have some figure? And what is required to be done to bring down the cost of the satellite? Today we have the technologies and all, but what all the initiative which is required, what industry should do, what the government should do to bring down the cost?
Thank you very much, Dr. Jain. First of all, good afternoon to everyone here. I'd like to first thank the organizers, IMC, and also InSpace for organizing this panel discussion. I'm actually standing here, or sitting here rather, on the panel on behalf of our president, Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, who was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. So I'm grateful, Dr. Jain, for asking this question. I think it's a very important question because this spurs off the demand for satellite communications. If it is very high, the target price or the cost, it is going to obviously lead to a slackening of demand. But if the cost is aggressive and it is if not at par, at least nearby to the terrestrial cost, the price or the cost of terrestrial broadband, it is definitely going to spur a lot of interest in this room, as well as for those who are sitting and watching this somewhere else. So I go back, first of all, a brief introduction, which has already been given. We are Broadband India Forum, so we deal with enhancement of broadband connectivity in a technology neutral and a non-partisan manner. So make it clear, so we are not batting for one technology vis-a-vis other. I will be only talking about the role of SatCom here, but in another forum maybe we would talk about some other technologies as well. So please do not mistake us that we are only playing or batting for a particular technology. Coming to this cost pertaining to what should be the target price or the target cost. In our opinion, it should be, as I mentioned, if SatCom has to grow in India, and today, as many of us in this room are aware, we only have what is called enterprise satellite broadband. We don't have consumer satellite broadband today. To be able to meet the expectations of the consumer, to provide broadband through any technology, I think the first thing which is important is reliability of the technology as well as the price at which the technology is made available. So if, as a consumer, we get a technology which is ultra reliable, more reliable than terrestrial, but at the same time the cost is higher, I don't think the adoption of the technology is going to be very high, and the demand is not going to shoot up. So it is very critical that the cost that we target for satellite broadband should be near about to the cost of terrestrial broadband. In this connection, I am reminded of an exercise that was done, sir, by Chairman in Space with the industry about a year and a half ago, sir, or a little over 2 years, where through a brainstorming session was conducted in which the target price of 10 rupees per GB or thereabouts was considered as a competitive target price that needed to be achieved for placing satellite communications as an alternate means or method of communications and to give incentive to the end consumer to adopt SatCom. However, that was kept in mind, keeping in view that the terrestrial broadband prices were around that benchmark. But the terrestrial broadband, one must not forget, those benchmarks are applicable in the urban or the dense urban areas. When you go to the rural and the remote areas, which is where satellite communications is supposed to go so as to bridge the digital divide, obviously the benchmarks will have to be raised suitably so that satellite communications remains affordable, but at the same time is not out of scale with terrestrial, simply because terrestrial broadband cannot reach those areas where satellite communications can reach. So that is my first part answer to the first question. Coming to what the government and the industry can do, I think there is a lot that the government can do. Government has done a lot, sir. You have already mentioned in your opening speech what are the areas that government has actually done and is continuing to do. But additionally, we feel that the following areas need to be touched upon by the government. First and foremost, in the current Telecommunications Act, there is a need to actually have a separate and a simplified authorization mechanism for exclusively for satellite communications. As per the draft telecom rules, which were issued by the Department of Telecom.
So, Debashish ji, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, this is one point. Maybe we'll not elaborate
okay,
that. Now
fine.
you can come to the second, third. So
I'll come to the other points. The second point we have is that the satellite spectrum prices, of course, the final price is not yet to be established, but the price that has been already benchmarked by TRAI, I think these prices need to be reviewed in light of the fact that, in our opinion, consumer satellites broadband is being introduced for the first time in this country, and they need to be kept as low as possible. And in our opinion, they should be basically barely minimum to keep the cost of the satellite spectrum to cover only administrative and regulatory costs. In our opinion, the TRAI benchmark of 4% SUC with 500 rupees per subscriber as an additional cost is rather on the higher side and needs to be reviewed. We would also like to talk about the fact that there is need, because satellite will probably go to the rural and remote areas. There is need for government support, primarily from the point of view of USOF and DBN support, both for the satellite services as well as for the satellite terminals, which are extremely high priced. They need to be subsidized. So we, in our opinion, are of the opinion that the satellite services need to be, the supply side needs to be incentivized through suitable incentives from DBN. At the same time, there should be a double whammy. There should be a direct benefit transfer to the end users, the poor and the marginal people who shall be utilizing the satellite consumer broadband. So there should be a supply side and a demand side incentive to boost and generate the demand for satellite communications. We are also of the opinion that the approval process needs to be further simplified, the policy permissions to use larger capacities and expand capacities without having to go back to the approver or the authorizer is important, because that would grow over a period of time. And we are of the opinion that satellite spectrum bands should be dedicated and given only to the satellite players. There should not be any case for mixed use of satellite spectrum. This, in our opinion, is some of the points that the government needs to look at.
Thank you, Devashish ji. Of course, my second part was there, what industry could do, but I will come back to you now in the second round, because this is what government could do, the points very well noted. I now come to Rajat ji. So you represent, of course, IBDF and broadcasting sector. Now, when we did the assessment for the, again, projection of the demand, and when we discussed with the industry, it emerged that the broadcasting sector is more or less going to be a plateau. It is not going to grow as fast as telecommunication sector. The transponder demands was more or less 25 to 30 transponders in C-band, and then DTH Ku-band also around 25 to 30 in over 5 years. Now, what is the reason for this broadcasting sector is now more or less stagnant? What again, here the forum is only for asking that what government can do, what industry can do to revive this particular sector, and we can have more and more demand generation.
Thank you, Dr. Jain. So good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's a interesting session and interesting to see SatCom Summit along with the Indian Mobile Congress. And SatCom as a sector is supposed to be linked to sky, and we say sky is the limit. And here we are talking that limit is limited. And we need to look on the opportunities or the possibilities with respect to that. Specific to, since I represent the entertainment, sports, and news media industry over here, see, it's media as a industry is not plateauing, it's growing, it's thriving well. It's a natural transition of technology, which we have seen it over years, like from terrestrial to satellite and satellite to streaming. That's the way the consumption and the distribution of the content had happened. The number of consumers are growing, and that is wherein the opportunity of all these modes of deliveries to coexist. So that is what we assume, and we are hopeful for that. Broadcast industry, that is the under media industry, typically the broadcast channels part of it. Yes, there is a stagnation which is coming, because all of us tend to go towards digital consumption, and digital ecosystem is also growing. It's ironical, for the growth of mobile or telecom sector, the part of the spectrum which was being used by the broadcast industry has been taken off. Now the growth of broadcast sector and broadcast sector helping the demand of SatCom, it doesn't exist, because currently we have to sort of struggle to meet the demand itself, because on one side we have less number of satellites, two, the frequency band available for us is also limited. So it's the natural way of operations or natural way of how the business was done has got impacted. Having said that, what we need to look at, while the distribution and the consumption of content or media industry or broadcast sector is happening on the digital function, digital ecosystem, the production of it, the requirement for more and more content is there. All of us consume 5 people in a home, we are consuming 5 different types of content. So the requirement or demand for more and more content is growing. And that is wherein we look at the opportunity and innovate ourselves. For example, edge computing, which is linked to typical digital ecosystem, why can't the edge computing, which provides immersiveness of the content, can be done at the satellite, at a LEO level, data center in the satellite. See, with this whole thing about AI and Gen AI, I guess all of us are aware, in United States, 10% of the power consumption has increased over last 1 quarter. Just because everybody wants to sort of explore and appreciate this AI applications and all. Now, if that part is done at the satellite level, it adds to the planet, it adds to the environmental factor. We need to look at that. LEO, MEO satellite, these are normally linked to only telecom. Why it can't be for the media sector as well, to provide the production opportunities and all. These are few things which I guess if we could, as an ecosystem, if we look at all stakeholders, I would say sky still would be the limit.
Good. Thank you, Rajat ji. And you brought the topic of LEO MEO. So now we have only 15 minutes left. So now I request one more round of questions, but only for 1 minute per question, so that we can conclude it in time. So General Bhatt, now he was talking about LEO MEO, and we are seeing that LEO MEO constellation, NGSO constellation, we have already authorized 3 to 4 constellations already, and then very soon they will start the services. They are all non-Indian constellation. Do you think there is a case for now bringing out or bringing in a Indian NGSO constellation? And if so, who should do it? It should be by industry, by private sector, or by government?
This is a very interesting question, and when we talk of Atmanirbharta and we talk of an Indian player being there's no one in sight when we go to the NGSO. And NGSO is the developing sector. Not that. Even for defense, if we have to have sovereignty, if we have to have a strategic need, we have finally to have our own constellation. In fact, the CDS in our Indian Space Conclave had announced that they are already designing one, which is a combination of multiple orbits, GEO, MEO, and LEO. And the challenge to that is the cost, because it is a huge capital cost. And if we even look at NGSO constellations in the world today, OneWeb and even Starlink, they are cost effective only when they serve the whole world. So what we have to do is we have to compete with them, not only to provide services to India, but to the whole
True.
world. Now, can any private player in India do it? I would very emphatically say a big no, without the government support. But with government support, yes. So the best model is the PPP model.
Okay.
Where regulations are looked after, there is a safety net which the government provides. Well, the agility of the private sector is also utilized. But do we require it? Definitely. Strategically and in the long term, we do require it.
Thank you. Very nicely summarized. It is required, and PPP model is the best model. Anil Prakash ji, see, this is regarding the VSAT. This is one of the very important SatCom element, and very heritage services in India since late 90s. But we are seeing the VSAT market is more or less again come to the stagnance. Rather slightly, the number of VSATs have actually very marginally declined also in last 2 years. Now, what should be done for the growing, to grow the VSAT, number of VSATs, the VSAT sector? What could be the reasons why the VSATs are now stagnant in India?
Thank you, Jensen. As you rightly said, VSAT, one point in time, it was the industry, it was surveying the large community, but later it has declined. The factors are, there are a couple of factors into that. One is that there's a technology transformation. And then in between, the government, National Telecom-Policy 2080 stands on a fiber-first policy. Whereas we should not be limiting or studying a particular technology. I think fiber-first policy has deterred. And then when it's come to connecting to the villages, the BharatNet, so it was identified there are 37 points to be covered by satellites only. But it's ironic to say only 6,000 satellite points has been covered so far. And that 6,000 satellite points have been choked further for lack of the bandwidth. So I think one is a requirement, and satellite can provide connectivity anywhere, anytime. So not only to the 37 villages, I think it can also provide immediate connectivity to far-flung area, the places, be connected in the future, but that can be immediately connected. So PM WAMI can be uploaded because that's about, we required close to about 2 million hotspots to be made available. Then USO fund has not allowed satellites, VSAT company to participate in the tender. It is primarily for the telcos. So I think that is the another added fault where the VSAT taker is taken out. But I think primarily VSAT will be, because there was always VSAT has been blindfolded hand because of the cap on their bandwidth. Initially, you remember it was only allowed for 56 kbps. After that, 212 kbps, then 512. Then it goes. So that technology had got a power, but you are not allowed to unleash fully. So I think the VSAT is also now the news era of the satellite, high throughput satellites are coming, and I believe that VSAT will definitely be studying and definitely serving better in terms of the last mile connectivity as well as the closed user group, which by and large. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil Prakash ji. And now I come to Devashish ji. Devashish ji, again, this is one of the emerging application which is now across the globe we are seeing from the SatCom, which is the consumer broadband. And now this consumer broadband now is made feasible because of the technologies development across the space sector as well as the space segment as well as the ground segment. Now, do you think that consumer broadband would be relevant in India? Of course, we have now permitted a huge high throughput capacity as well as the NGSO constellation capacity, which generally is told that it is suitable for the consumer broadband. Do you think that consumer broadband would be successful in India? It will generate the demand, or it will change the entire landscape in the country in terms of the SatCom demand?
Thank you very much, Dr. Jain. At the outset, let me just say one line. Why are we in this room to discuss SatCom? If everything is being met by terrestrial broadband, then we don't need satellite broadband. But the unfortunate answer is that nothing like that is happening. We have a digital divide of 67%, which has plateaued over the last 5 years, while the urban broadband demand, urban broadband penetration is at 107%. The rural broadband has almost stagnated at 46%. If you look at the TRAI figures over the last 5 years, you will see that what I'm saying absolutely makes sense. So therefore, there is a need to plug this and bridge this gap. And that is not happening despite the best efforts being made by the terrestrial broadband players. So this is where satellite needs to come in. And therefore, why this particular aspect of targeting consumer broadband using satellite, and especially the next generation satellites like the LEOs and the MEOs, will be, in our opinion, a real game changer in terms of generating SatCom demand in India. This is also, let me also say very bluntly that what needs to be done to promote this is primarily that we need, as I mentioned earlier, we need supply side incentives and demand side pull by way of a DBT on the demand side and a supply side incentive through DBN. I just heard my previous speaker say that, USOF, the erstwhile version of DBN, did not support consumer VSAT, did not support VSAT market in India. But the current DBN, as most of you would know, actually permits incentives not just for telecom technologies, but also for new and emerging technologies. NGSO-based satellite constellation and demand is nothing but new technologies. And therefore, there is every reason for the satellite players to go and demand from DBN that they must be supported for NGSO-based demand rollout in this country. There should be support from DBN. That is point number one. The other aspects that we need to look at for generating demand is that we could think in terms of, because we are talking of targeting the rural and remote areas, to plug the digital divide, we would need the government to probably look at things like exempting the satellite operator from paying license fee for maybe the initial 5 years, provided of course, he focuses on rural broadband only. Another point that I have made earlier, I'm repeating once again, the spectrum prices need to be kept at a bare minimum level for the rural areas, and it should be lower than what has been recommended by TRAI. And last but not the least, we would also recommend delicensing of the satellite terminals and liberalization of the import policy for the satellite terminals. In our review, if all these points are covered, I think we have a case to actually help satellite bridge the digital divide, and thereby India can achieve the status of Viksit Bharat even before 2047. Thank you.
Thank you, Devashishi. Nicely summarized what all the things which need to be done. Rajatji, see, this question is regarding the broadcasting sector. MIB has been now taking lot of initiative and try to incentivize to make India as a global uplinking hub for the TV channels like Singapore. Now, recently, I think they have now also reduced the uplinking charges also substantially. And there is a lot of push now by the government. So what else is required? Do you see that India as a global uplinking hub, we have the adequate infrastructure, adequate policy framework, or something more needs to be done to attract the global channel operators to come here, use our infrastructure for uplinking the TV channels across the globe?
So, again, on the question, if we talk in principle, the democratization of technology has actually resulted into saying that rocket science is no longer a rocket science. So, capability and the technology certainly exist, and that is feasible. Two is, this sort of initiative or drive perhaps is coming late in the day. Now, currently, the broadcast sector is struggling with respect to the satellite operations today. Now, scope of expansion of that need to be examined first, and then the policy. It can happen if there are use cases. Anybody doing an investment, they would be doing it for business. There has to be business case for it. The application which I mentioned in my earlier thing, like remote production on the satellite, like today for IPL match, we get 35 plus cameras back into our studios and we process it and deliver it. And that we use the terrestrial connectivity, which is prone to breaks. Unlike satellite, I would, if it is affordable and if it is possible, I would want to use satellite capacity for that and uplink it and bring out a smart feed for us. So if there are use case for it, certainly then the rest of the other things can happen. Typically, so one need to be innovative on that. For example, use of laser comm. Instead of using radio waves, why can't we look at exploring this laser comm, which is much more reliable, it's more targeted and unbreachable. So those are the innovative ways which we need to look in the satellite sector. And with the initiatives, Dr. Jain, you and the team that we have seen over the last few years, that is a good sign, but we need to move faster on that to get us into a good steady state. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajatji. And with this, I think we have reached to the end of this particular session. Thank you very much, distinguished panelists. We have discussed what all the government side, the initiative which would be required further on the policy front. Of course, we are yet to hear, we could not discuss what industry could do their bit also to promote this ecosystem. But we know that industry has been now, in fact, co-traveler with the government. We have a lot of interactions with very close interaction with the industry on various fronts, and hopefully we'll continue to do so. And all these your associations have played a major role in providing the very, very valuable inputs to the government whenever we have asked for the inputs for formulating the policies. Thank you very much. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I will stop here and hand it over mic to you.
Dr. Jain, I would take 30 seconds. I'll just refer to what you, in your initial part, you mentioned about soft regulation. And that is something which, as an industry, we would be looking at soft or light touch regulation for the industry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, speakers, for the valuable session. Just a moment, we would be giving, as a sincere gratitude, a memento to all the members of the panel. I would request our team to be there and there. Okay.